When it comes to your money, finish this sentence in your head. If I could just, what is that for you? If I could just win the lottery. Or maybe if I could just have a relative die that was really rich, maybe someone far enough removed that I'm not super sad about it, but close enough that I would get some of that money. Maybe for some of you, it's like, man, if I could just pay my bills and just have a little bit left at the end of the month. If I could just buy a car. If I could just get out of debt. How about that one? If I could just get out of debt. I have asked a lot of those. I've even wished I could win the lottery, but I've never even bought a lottery ticket. We're in a series. It's called Making Money Work. And for the next few weeks, we're going to talk about all the money questions. How much money do you need? How do you win with money? How do you get out of debt? How much money is too much? And maybe today, the most important question, what is the purpose of money? Because I think we all know inherently, money can't be the end goal. If money is your end goal, I promise you're going to be disappointed. So what is the purpose of money? Let's talk about what Jesus would say the purpose of money is. Jesus is pretty smart. You know, if you've been around church before, you may even know Jesus talked about money all the time. Jesus talked about money more than he talked about heaven. And the crazy thing is he never asked for a dime, never asked for any money. And so it's fascinating, right, to think, what does Jesus say about money? We're going to read a story. If you have your Bible, turn to Luke chapter 16. I love this guy, Luke, who wrote the account of Jesus' life. I love it so much that we named our youngest son Luke. He's 4 now. And I like Luke because Luke was different than all the other first century Jesus story authors because he was not Jewish. Luke was a doctor. He had this perspective of an outsider telling the story of Jesus. And Jesus in this story of Luke has just told in Luke 15 what I think maybe is the most beautiful story ever told. And it's about this son who runs away, squanders his dad's inheritance, and he goes back thinking that he might get a job from his dad. And his dad just welcomes him back into the family, throws a party. And I'm sure these people in this crowd are just in awe of the grace of God after Jesus tells this story. And then he tells this really weird story in Luke 16. So if you want to pay attention, because this is going to be a kind of weird story. Luke 16, we're going to read verse 1. Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So right off the bat, we learn there's a wrong way to spend your money. There is a wrong way to spend your money, which implies that there's actually a right way to spend your money. And so, what is the purpose of money? And really, is it about ownership? It's not, because the owner is accusing the manager. There's a management in this story. Let me just let you in on something. You are not the owner in this story. You are the manager in this story. So, what that means is that your money isn't yours. You are not an owner. You are a manager. Everything God gives you isn't yours. And so how you treat something that's not yours depends on who owns it, right? So like if you rent a car, sure you don't want to wreck it, but you're not going to treat it very well, right? Who cares what the car rental place, if you drive their car too rough or whatever. But if I babysit my sister's toddler, man, I'm going to take care of her, right? Because I care about her. And so you're an owner. The thing that you're managing is God's. So let's see what he says next. Verse 2, he called him in. The owner called in the manager and said, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. So this guy gets called out. And if you and I are in his shoes, then you have to realize this. One day, you will give an account for everything you've been given. One day, you will give an account for what you've been giving. We do this as a church, actually. We have 4 sending churches that have been so generous to invest in the Hills Community Church. And every month I sit down with a representative from each of those churches and I give an account for what we've been given. And we talk about what are we doing as a team and how are we spending our money and our resources. And we look at our finances and how we're spending money. We look at our events. We look at where the energy is going. I also do this personally. Every month I sit down with my wife and we talk about, hey, this is how it's gone the last month. Here's our plan for the next month. I like to call our plan a cash flow plan because I hate the word budget. So we have a cash flow plan. I give an account. Amy and I both give an account to each other. Maybe for you, maybe you have that. Maybe you have someone who asks you how it's going with your money. Or maybe you don't have anybody. And you just kind of do what you want with your money. And if that's you, you will have to give an account for everything you've been given one day to God. And so just be aware of that. And so this manager is realizing this. I have to give an account. And he starts spiraling. Here's what he says in verse 3. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. And so he realized he's kind of backed into a corner. He's not strong enough to dig, because I guess he could make money digging. Or I guess he could make money begging, but he's too ashamed to beg. And so he finds himself in a place of desperation. And if you feel that about money right now, I'm sorry. It's hard, right? It's hard whenever you feel desperate financially. But maybe it's a good thing because financial changes don't come until you experience a level of desperation. The change of staying where you are has to be a higher level of pain than the pain of change. So if you have a level of desperation, maybe that's going to fuel you to make some financial changes. In fact, if you're fine financially, this series probably isn't going to affect you much. But if you're hurting, if you're in need of help, I hope this is a helpful series because financial changes don't come until you experience a level of desperation. So here's what he does. He's got this desperation and he kind of turns it into energy in verse 4. He says, I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So he called each one of his master's debtors. He asked first, how much do you owe my master? 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. Thief! This debtor owed 900 gallons of oil. And he cut it in half to 450. And he doesn't stop there. He says, verse 7, it says, then he asked the second, how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill and make it 800. So he got less bold as they went, right? He cut the first one in half. The second one, he's like, okay, from 1,000, let's just lower it to like 800. And man, the people listening to this story are probably thinking, the owner is about to get him. This guy's going to jail. He could take his life. At least he's going to yell at him or beat him up or something, right? This guy is making the master less rich. But this is so cool because Jesus is the best storyteller ever. Because right when they think they know where the story is going, verse 8, it goes a completely different direction. It says the master, he didn't beat him. He didn't fire him. He didn't put him in jail. It says the master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. What? This guy stole money from him. He deserves to be punished, right? This guy who forgave the debt of the debtors. And then Jesus turns and he looks at the people who are in front of him. And he says this, the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. He was talking about his people, the Jewish people. Because God had given them a way to deal with money. And then he says that he brings this really gentle correction to them. I tell you, use your worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. I've been welcomed into some pretty nice houses. But I would imagine that there's no house on earth that will compare to an eternal dwelling. That's got to be pretty cool, right? I want to be welcomed into an eternal dwelling. And here's how you get there. Jesus says this: the best move you can make with your money is to build relationships. Do you hear that it's not about the money? The money is like on the way to the relationships. The best thing you can do, the best move you can use for your money is to build relationships. That's why we all know this, right? That's why we take care of our family. This is why you want to have a place for your family to live. This is why you want to take your family to Disneyland. You want to make memories. Aren't memories more valuable than money? Aren't the relationships that you're building with your family more important than the money that you're accumulating? We know this. It's not about the money. It's the relationships. This is also why we know that addictions are wrong. Because when you are addicted to alcohol, drugs, pornography, some of us are addicted to just buying stuff. You are spending your money, your resources, not on your relationships, but on this addiction. And it just destroys your relationships. And this is why Jesus says, use your money to build relationships. Because I probably don't even have to announce this. The value of the dollar is going down. Has anyone noticed this? The value of the dollar is going down. And one day, your money will be worth absolutely nothing. And you've just been working so hard to accumulate this money, and it's going to be worth nothing. People in Russia are already experiencing this. I thought it was wrong. I read a report that from February 28th to March 1st, the value of the Russian ruble compared to the dollar went from 10 rubles to a dollar to 100 rubles to a dollar overnight. Now that was strategic. The United States and a lot of other global economies are trying to drain Russia's resources because they want to try to get them to stop invading Ukraine. But these Russians are already experiencing it. One day your money will be worth absolutely nothing. And so you can't just pursue money to have money. Money can't be the end result, right? Jesus said, whoever can be trusted, this is verse 10 if you're following with me, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is very dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? There's only one thing in this world that when you leave it, you get to take it with you. I think that's what that true riches is talking about. It's relationships. The only thing that you invest in here on earth that's going with you when you leave this earth is the relationships you build. That's true riches. You know, the most valuable thing on the planet is people. God's prized possession of this earth is you and me. And Jesus said, verse 12, if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So if you look at your goals and you're really honest, and you say, my number one goal is to get rich, it is impossible to serve God. You may think, I'm trying to get rich and I want to serve God on the side. No, you can't. If your goal is to have money, you cannot serve God. Use worldly wealth to build relationships. That's what Jesus says. The Pharisees, we learn who Jesus is really talking to at the end. It's verse 14. It says, the Pharisees who loved money heard this and were sneering at Jesus. And I think he just looks right to him, right? He looks over at the Pharisees. They're probably not close, right? The people who were always closest to Jesus were the broke down people, the poor, the hurt, the prostitutes, the beggars, and then far off, like sneering, are the Pharisees. And it says Jesus looks over to them and he says to them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others, but God knows your hearts." What people highly valuable is detestable in God's sight. You see, we value wealth. People value wealth. Oh, wow, that guy's really rich. And God says, those riches are nothing. That's not true riches. So if that's the case, then what is the purpose of money? What is money, right? What is it? It's two things. According to this story, money is two things. The first thing, money is a tool. It's like a hammer. It's not inherently good or inherently bad. Some people think money, if you have money, you must have done something right. Right? Like God helps those who help themselves, and so they're rich, they're supposed to be rich. But that's not how God sees it. Some people think if someone's rich, they did something wrong. But money is not inherently good or bad. It depends on whose hands it's in. Just like a hammer. You can use a hammer to build a house. You probably need other tools too. But you can also use a hammer to destroy some stuff, right? Anybody ever done like a demo day with a big jackhammer? You can mess some stuff up with a hammer. Or you can build something up. Money is a tool. Wouldn't it be weird if you came to my house and I was like, "Hey, check out this hammer collection. I mean, I have tons of hammers." And you're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, my goal has been to get a lot of what? The hammer is just a tool. Like, why do you want to accumulate tools?" Now, if I had a bunch of people that could use them, but that wouldn't be the goal. The hammers wouldn't be the goal. Here's the second thing money is. Money is a tool, and money is a test. One day, you will give an account for every resource that you have been given. The reason that money is a test is because it's not the most valuable thing. We think it's valuable. We have this idea in our heads that money is the most valuable thing. That's what the test is. The test is this: what will you value most in life? Growing up, we would play Monopoly in our house. While you're playing Monopoly, those little multicolored bills are valuable, right? And we would get in fights. We would yell at each other. But at the end of the game, those little multicolored bills were worth nothing. At the end of the game, it was about the relationships, right? Like, we were supposed to be playing this game to, like, have fun, right? It was not fun. It was serious. The test is this: what do you value most in life? And I don't know what the answer is for you, but I know what the answer is for all humanity. The thing that is the most valuable in this life is Jesus. And when we see that, when we really believe that Jesus is worth everything, then we will take these tools and we will see money as a tool, and we will see it as a test, and we will point it in that direction, and we will start to do this. Listen, change the way you see money. Change the way you see. Get those dollar signs out of your mind, out of your eyes. Have you ever been to a third world country? Anybody? Is it not true the happiest people on the world are those who have next to nothing? It blows your mind, right? You think, these little kids have nothing, but they're so much happier than me. The happiest people in the world have next to nothing. Change the way you see money. Money will not make you happy. I tell you what it can do. Money can you can have fun with money. You can buy some fun. You can't buy happiness, you can buy fun. But even when you're done buying that fun, or no matter how much fun you buy, who are the most miserable people in the world? The people who have the most money, the most fame. Those are the ones who are the most addicted to drugs, alcohol, suicide rates among people who are high financial status is way high. Because they know they've gotten it, right? They've gotten the money, all the money, and the fame, and all the good things in life that we think are the most valuable things. And they say, no, it's not true. Here's the truth. A question to ask yourself: am I building relationships? Are you using your money to build relationships? If that's the only thing that will last beyond this life that's on earth. This is where it gets really fun. Because when you use your money to build relationships, you get to bless somebody. Because that money, that's a tool. In the hands of a generous person, money can bless the socks off somebody. And regardless of how much you have, you can bless somebody something. I mean, who's someone in your life that has a need that you could meet? Whether it's just taking them a meal, paying for a bill. I don't know, maybe somebody here has the ability to pay for someone's college. How incredible would that be if someone got to not just be blessed, but be invested in? You can invest in someone financially. What about this? What is a debt that someone owes you that you can just forgive? There's no clearer picture of the gospel on the planet. Because we are debtors. We owe God. I have messed up, and so have you. And there's this debt that we could never pay called sin. And Jesus came, and he paid that debt for us and says, you are forgiven. And when you have someone that owes you money and you say, what? You are forgiven. You are showing them Jesus. You are showing them the gospel. Forgive a debt. I promise you, the joy you get and the freedom and the way that you share the gospel through that action is way worth more than whatever they owe you, I promise. Forgive a debt. Bless somebody. Now, you may be sitting there, and you may not even say this out loud, but you may have this mentality or something that you've thought or maybe even been taught over the years. The church is just after my money. So we're trying to say all these manipulative things to get you to give to the church. That could not be further from the truth. Can I tell you, God doesn't need your money. God doesn't need you. God doesn't need me. He will accomplish his purpose in the world with or without us. And I want to be part of it. And I want the ultimate treasure, the thing that I value the most in life, to be Jesus. So much so that every resource I have is given to his cause. God doesn't need your money. The church is not after your money. If you give today out of guilt, I would rather you just not give. In fact, every pastor I know, we don't want to guilt people into giving. It's not about that. We're not after your money. Please hear that. The church is not after your money. You may be sitting there and thinking, man, but I'm already so behind financially. How will I ever catch up? I'm so in debt. I feel like there's this crushing thing, and I'll never get out. And if that's you, and if you feel hopeless about money, I know that's hard. I've been there. I've had so much debt that I thought I would never get out before. And if that's you, I want to invite you back next week. Because next week, we are talking about really what is the reality of debt. And how do we get out? How do we win? How do you ever win? So if you know someone that's struggling financially, I want you to invite them next week. Because we're going to bring some hope. We're going to bring some motivation. We're going to come together. We're going to say, this is possible. God is the God of comebacks. And so I don't care how far in debt you are. There's hope. So I'm not really going to answer that one yet. I'm just going to say come back next week. Because if you're far behind and you feel like you'll never get out of debt, come back next week. So money is a tool. Money is a test. My favorite tool is a blowtorch. when I was 15, I took a class. I'm from Texas. And in Texas, we have ag classes. I'm sure there's ag classes here where you take care of animals. And then there's another kind of class called ag mechanics, where you take care of the fences that the animals are in. And so I don't know who thought it was a good idea to give 15-year-old Brian a blowtorch, but they did it. And we never burned the building down, but I really like this blowtorch. You could cut metal with it. And I remember for my final project, I had to cut a square out of metal. My square was not very square, but I did cut something out of metal, like a flat piece. You cut it with a blowtorch. I learned enough of a blowtorch to be able to cut it. And then I had to take this pipe, and I had to weld the pipe and attach it to the blowtorch. Those are the two primary tools that you use in ag mechanics when you're working with metal, is a welder and a blowtorch. So, if I had this tool, blowtorch, and I just started gathering them, right? And I never actually even tried, I would not pass the test, right? I like blowtorches. I think it's a cool tool, but I'm not just gonna try to collect my blowtorch or just enjoy having my blowtorch. I had to use the tool to do what? To pass the test. Money is a tool. Money is a test. Use the tool to pass the test. Money is not the end result. Money is not the most valuable thing. Jesus is the most valuable thing. He says, use your money to build relationships, to build his kingdom. At the beginning today, I asked you to think, if I could just. And I want to challenge you. May the end of that statement not let the end result be money. Let the end of that statement be something like, if I could just use this tool to pass the test. If I could just change the way I see money. If I could value Jesus and value relationships as the most important things in life. Because that's what God says are most important. Use the tools to pass the test. Can you imagine what this will look like in our community? We're free. We're out of debt. We're blessing each other. We're meeting each other's needs. This sounds like what the church was like in the first century, right? Maybe if we were even just really honest with each other, and we don't pretend like we're really good financially, but we share our struggles. Use the tools. Pass the test.